This is the Nikon 1V3, a camera so obscure that most people have either forgotten it existed or just assumed it was some kind of Nikon prototype left in a pub that they never bothered to collect. But despite not being the initial success that Nikon had hoped for, in many ways this camera might provide answers to a lot of demands made by photographers in 2025. It's small, it's fast, it's relatively cheap, but most interestingly of all, it's a semi-modular design, which means it can cater to most requirements. Semi. And yet, because it uses a 1-inch sensor and belongs to a range that Nikon basically abandoned out of pure embarrassment, it's now one of the most underrated mirrorless cameras ever made, well, in my humble opinion at least. So what exactly makes this camera so appealing to me? Well, first things first, this thing is pretty tiny, well, at least if you want it to be. Now, of course, we'll get onto the modular add-ons a little bit later, but just as a bare bones camera body, this is small enough to slip into most jacket pockets.
I've got something in my front pocket for you.
And weighing just 324 grams or around 11.4 ounces body only, it's certainly not going to do your back in carrying it around all day. And these characteristics alone make it a pretty good pick for street or travel photography, as it's very subtle and doesn't draw attention. But as I've already mentioned, what sets this V3 apart from the usual pocket camera crowd is that it's not just small, it's modular. You can bolt on a grip, you can bolt on an EVF, you can go full mini mirrorless Mechazord mode and attach both if you really want to, or just keep it stripped down and stealthy. Now, I was lucky enough to get this camera bundled with the grip attachment, which I've been shooting with quite a lot, though sadly the EVF attachment seems to be the highly sought after attachment, and personally I didn't feel like having to sell a testicle in order to try it out, so I can't really comment on how good or bad that is, unfortunately. But before I get too carried away, you might be sat there thinking, big deal Tom, most cameras offer grips and other attachments as standard, that's really not groundbreaking. And you'd be totally right, on paper this really isn't anything new, but what I think makes this feel different is that these add-ons were intentional. They were made as part of the camera's initial design and not just thrown in as some kind of upsell item. This grip, for instance, not only does it improve the ergonomics, but it also gives you an extra command dial, an extra function button, and an extra shutter button for some weird reason, which makes the whole thing feel a bit more, well, camera-y. And sure, I'll admit, it's not entirely perfect. You do have to take the grip off every time you want to change the battery, which is a major annoyance. But I can kind of forgive it because this thing handles far better than it has any right to. Even without the grip, the buttons are incredibly well placed, and the tilting screen on the back is obviously great for low or high angle shooting, but also, rather uniquely, these menu buttons at the side here also come out with the screen, which I didn't think much of to start with, but actually is incredibly useful because it means they're always visible no matter what angle you're shooting. Overall, the layout is surprisingly tactile for something that costs less than what most of us spend on coffee in a month. Now, speaking of which, I managed to purchase this copy in near mint condition on Buyee for just under 30,000 Japanese yen, which is approximately $226 US. And as I've already mentioned, it included the hand grip. Then I also bought this 18.5mm f1.8 prime lens for around 13,600 yen, which is around $103 US. So all in, this cost me just under $330 US, including fees and shipping, which I think is pretty reasonable. Now, that's not to say that I don't have some gripes with this camera, because I certainly do. For starters, whilst there is a pop-up flash, which is very convenient, annoyingly, Nikon decided to opt for their own proprietary hot shoe design thing on the top here, which means you are locked into using Nikon 1 accessories only. And I really do wish they'd just stuck to using a standard hot shoe port design, but never mind, I guess. The second gripe I have is with the memory card, because they decided to use micro SDs rather than a standard SD card. Why did they do that? I have no idea for sure, but my guess is that it was probably down to size. Micro SD cards take up way less space, and that means that the camera can stay small. Lastly, because this is a discontinued camera range, lens options are fairly limited. Now, it's not Samsung NX level of limited, but still something you should be made aware of before you dive headfirst into this archaic camera range. But all of that said, for a camera made in 2014, what's the performance actually like? Well, this Nikon 1V3 doesn't just do fast, apparently it does stupid fast.
I'm fast as boy!
This thing can shoot 20 frames per second at full resolution with continuous autofocus, which is a performance that will give most modern mirrorless cameras a run for their money. But if you really want to step it up a gear, there's even an option to shoot at 60 frames per second in burst mode, though I do need to stress that this does come with a few caveats. Mainly that it's single AF point only in this mode, and obviously rattling off that many images will stuff the micro SD card faster than a Leica owner will mention that they shoot with a Leica. So for most cases, 10 or 20 frames per second will be more than enough, but I guess it's handy to have if you ever need it. But the rapid speed doesn't stop there, because the autofocus on this thing is also genuinely impressive. With 105 phase detect AF points and lightning quick acquisition, this alone makes it an ideal street photography camera. It's fast, it's accurate, and it's very quiet. This also has a proper mechanical shutter too, and despite its small size, it still fires with a really satisfying clunk. The best part though is that it's virtually blackout free, particularly when using faster shutter speeds, meaning that you really don't miss out on any of the action. Though if you want to be super stealthy, you can activate silent shooting mode, and this will prioritize using the electronic shutter, which is obviously completely silent and increases the maximum shutter speed to a whopping 1/16,000th of a second. Speaking of being stealthy, that reminds me of today's sponsor, Incogni. Now, if you've ever Googled yourself and found your phone number, email, or home address casually chilling on some dodgy website that you've never even heard of, well, that's because of data brokers. Yeah, those lovely people who make a living collecting all of your data and then selling on your personal info like it's a discounted vinyl at a car boot sale. Well, Incogni is a service that helps you get that data taken down. They contact data brokers on your behalf, file all of the legal requests, and generally do all the tedious soul-destroying admin work so you don't have to. And now they've introduced a feature called custom removals, which basically means if you find your data on a website that they don't already cover, you can send them the link and they'll go after it for you anyway. Think of it as like having your own privacy assassin on retainer. There's no boring paperwork to fill out and no more pretending that you're totally fine with strangers knowing your childhood address and your cat's middle name. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee as standard, so you can try it out for yourself virtually risk-free, or even better, if you hit the link in the pinned comment below or go to incogni.com/Calton and use the code Calton at checkout, you'll get 60% off an annual plan. Again, for ease, everything you need is either in the video description or the pinned comment below. Anyway, before we dive into talking about image quality, let's quickly cover this lens, because as I mentioned, I paired mine with this 18.5mm f1.8. Now, this isn't the first time that I've actually owned or used this lens. I first used it when I was shooting with this camera's sibling, the Nikon 1J5, which is also a camera I would highly recommend, by the way. Now, this is a pretty solid choice in my opinion because it's small, light, fast, and thanks to the 2.7 times crop factor created by the 1-inch sensor, it gives you a full frame equivalent focal length of around 50mm, which in my opinion is the perfect all-rounder focal length and one that I personally enjoy shooting with. Now, although this lens does have a maximum aperture of f1.8, due to the small sensor, I can't say that the bokeh is exactly dreamy. I mean, you can squeeze out a bit of subject separation if you shoot up close and wide open, but don't expect creamy backgrounds or any kind of optical magic here. Still, for around $100-ish, it's kind of a no-brainer. But anyway, what's the image quality like? Well, it's surprisingly decent. Inside this camera, it has an 18.4 megapixel 1-inch sensor, and look, I understand that this is never going to tempt over full frame photographers, but if you're shooting in good light, sticking to ISO 3200 or below, and not pixel peeping like your life depends on it, the images this thing produces are genuinely very nice. After all, it's a Nikon camera, so that means solid color science and plenty of room to tweak your images if you're shooting in RAW. Dynamic range is respectable, color rendering is very natural, and really the only time it really struggles a bit is in low light, but even then a bit of AI noise reduction in post and it will hold up fine for web, small prints, and those portfolio filler shots that you pretend weren't shot on a discontinued camera from 2014. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Maybe. Anyway, if you do happen to like how these example images have turned out, then be sure to check out my range of presets that I have for sale on my website. And if you use the code pinned in the comment below, you can also get yourself 10% off everything in store. But if editing endless RAW files isn't your thing, then the good news is that this camera actually has a really nice black and white mode. And personally, I've enjoyed shooting in RAW and JPEG, and then shooting the JPEGs in mono, so that I get a bunch of nice high contrast black and white shots straight out of the camera, as as well as having the color raws that I can work up later if I want to. Now, I should also mention that this camera can shoot video, albeit very basic 1080 HD, so this really isn't a serious video tool, but it could be handy in a pinch. So, despite me singing this camera's praises for the last few minutes, why can't I get this lens on? Why didn't this camera take off as Nikon had hoped? Well, let's be honest here. Launching a mirrorless system with a 1-inch sensor into a market full of APS-C and Micro Four Thirds competition was a seriously ballsy move.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
And unfortunately, it was one that just didn't pay off for Nikon. And so, just 4 years after this V3 was released, Nikon decided to axe the entire 1 series in favor of the company's new range of APS-C and full-frame mirrorless cameras, which unsurprisingly sold way better. But just because this camera system is technically dead, that doesn't mean it's useless, because sometimes dead systems leave behind some surprisingly lively cameras. The Nikon 1V3 might be a relic of a failed experiment, but it's also proof that good gear doesn't need to have a big sensor, a cult following, or a second digit in the model name.